Hi, I'm Brad Hodge. You are probably aware by now that the start of this year for nursing students in particular is a little on the messy side for various different reasons. I'm not going to claim it's my fault or yours. Who cares, really? Let's get the problem solved. So if you're watching this, you're either an overachieving student who felt like they just wanted to watch the same content that they got in the workshop the first time again, which is fine, go for it. But more likely you've missed the first workshop and you're kind of partially freaking out about catching up, which is kind of good because freaking out sometimes helps us catch up. So what I'm going to try and do through these videos is just to catch you up on what's going to be super, super important. I've rejigged the second workshop, which happens Friday coming, so that we can kind of make sure that we create our groups, which is really important. But these videos will hopefully give you the information you need to know what questions to ask. Also, I'm more than happy and would like to meet with you if you've got questions, or even if you don't, just pop into the office or arrange a time to chat with me. I will probably be arranging time to meet with each of the groups independently because this semester we're just going to have to run it in a way that costs me a lot of time, but make sure that you get through. So I'm more than happy to do that to sort this out. So who am I? My background is quite weird, really. I came to university when I was about 35. I have always had a passion for community, a really strong interest in humans, in human behavior. Came to study psychology, thought I would be a clinical psychologist, but turns out I'm not a nice enough person to listen to people's stories all day. But I did fall in love with the science of human behavior. How do we get people doing the things that they know they should, but they don't? How do we do that? At the individual level, how do we do that? But also at the community level, how do we do that? I've been involved. I was a youth worker for a number of years. I've run a number of, lots of community festivals, been involved in community houses, all that kind of stuff. And then add on top of that, the research around behavior change and psychology. I have a real passion for the role of community. My partner is a social worker. She works in the mental health space, and we're constantly having conversations about the fact that a lot of the problems that we see in our community around mental health could actually be solved if people had some friends, if they had some community. So I see community as sitting really, really centrally to well-being and health and even physical health and all of those other things, that if there's community there, that can make a difference. I used to live in the suburbs of Melbourne, moved up to Heathcote, actually, initially, which is the community that you're working with. And we thought, we probably were not going to like it. Who wants to live in the country? We'll give it a go for a couple of years, but we loved it, really enjoyed it. We live in Bendigo now, but we really enjoyed that kind of life. And from a learning perspective, one of the things that I love about the opportunities that working on a project like you're going to work on is that when you have a look at a rural community, it has clear boundaries, it has clear edges. So when you have a look at Heathcote, you know that it's got a population of 4,000 people, okay? Not 6, 4. That's it, Yes, visitors come, but they tend to be tourists. Yes, some people have holiday houses in the area, but they're really clearly defined. You can see that there's a hospital there. You can see that there's a couple of schools. You can see that there's no high school. So it's really easy as a student or as someone operating in this space to kind of get your head around what is this community, because it doesn't have the blurry edges that you'll get in a suburban area. Now, the skills that you're learning in this, yes, they apply to suburban areas. It's just much easier to get your head around it in a rural context where you can go, okay, who are the health service providers? And then you can list them. It's really simple and straightforward. Whereas if you're in Melbourne, some people in a particular community might be traveling, half an hour to another community. Okay, so the rural context gives us a really good training ground for getting our head around the role of community in health, and that's central to this. I also think that living rurally lifestyle-wise, and I joke with some of my colleagues in Melbourne about this, that living in rurally lifestyle-wise, I'm actually better off. So I have the kind of job I would have in the city, and I go to Melbourne. I love, going out to events and parties and stuff like that. So I do all of that. It's only a couple of hours on the train, but my mortgage is half what it would be if it was in Melbourne. I don't live side by side with my neighbours. I walk to work. My partner walks to work. So we only need one car, and most of the time it sits in the driveway. The air is cleaner. It's not as noisy. The traffic is not an issue. All of those things. So for me, when I look at rural, I kind of look into the future and go, what would a future look like if rural was the ideal? Okay, there are challenges associated with rural, and we'll get into that, but living rurally presents an incredible opportunity for community. I also have a real passion for the importance of group work. The reality is when we look at health and well-being challenges across the world, the big ones, often we kind of in some way know how to solve them. So we know how to solve the obesity problem. People need to eat less and exercise more. But can we do it? No, of course we can't. I can't be disciplined enough to go to the gym for more than 20 minutes at a time. So what we actually need is to bring together multidisciplinary teams, people who understand all sorts of different things and get them working together. Now, I know that some of you are shuddering at the idea of group work, but I can assure you in this subject, generally, 9 times out of 10, students report that the group work experience in this subject is really good. And we'll talk through a bit of how to do that well. But I'm a really passionate believer in the importance of group work and the importance of building community around group work and working on shared projects. It's one of the best ways to connect with other people is to have a shared vision. And so we're going to do that in this subject. In terms of how to work with me, Look, I like to say I'm not a normal academic, but I'm not sure that there is such a thing as a normal academic, okay? My role is to lead you, okay? That doesn't make me better than you. It doesn't make me more powerful than you. In fact, it's entirely up to you whether you follow. And some of you won't, and that's okay. I can live with that, right? I'm still gonna try. My job is to poke and prod and try and get the best out of you, okay? Now, what that means is that I will ask you questions in class and I will expect you to answer. I will kind of go, how did you go? Did you get that work done? We're going to actively work together. This is not the kind of class where I lecture you, you listen to it or take notes and we're done. This is an engagement between us. We're going to create things together, and that's really important. Now, my belief is that yes, there's a certain amount of power that I have in the knowledge that I have, right? So I know how you can get good grades. I know what the assessment looks like. I can answer all those questions. I can see what's around the corner. I can help you create group work, but that doesn't make me more important than you, okay? In fact, in reality, if I came into your workplace, if I came into the nursing lab, you would definitely be the boss. And I'm acutely aware that I hold the power in the subject, and that's all, okay? Now, what that means is that I'm not your boss. You never actually have to do what you're told, but you will live with the implications within, this subject. I do need you to tell me what's going on for you. If you just sit quietly and go, this subject is shit, and you don't talk to me about it, you don't say, can you help, or can you help me understand, then I like to think that I know how to read minds, but I can't, okay? So I need you to be open and honest with me about your experience of this subject so that I can support you to achieve the objectives that I have in this subject, but also, more importantly, the objectives that you have, right? So I need you to be open and honest. I also need you to come and be present. This is not the kind of class that you just let wash over you. You will quickly realize that this class doesn't involve a lot of classic content. So often, there's only a few things you can learn in a workshop. One is knowledge, another is skills, right? These are two things. There's one more, but we won't worry about that for the moment. Now, the majority of this subject, yes, you are going to learn things about the community, but most of it is skills. How to understand a community, how to work together, how to communicate well, how to develop ideas, all of these kinds of things. So I'm not just going to pour that information over you and hope that it sticks. The whole point of this subject is for you to develop these ideas. And so when you're in the workshop together, we will actually be collaborating and working together so that you can develop those skills. Now, the only way that you're going to do that is if you're present. And present in the sense that you're listening and engaged and asking questions, okay? I will drag you back in, I will ask you questions, I will draw you through, and I'll do my best to keep you engaged, but at the end of the day, you need to come with a decision to engage. So that is how we're going to work together. This is very much a collaborative subject. It's like nothing you've ever done before, probably. And it is very much a case of what you put in is going to be the biggest the biggest kind of indicator of what you get out. I did have a student complain once. They said, they prefaced the complaint. They thought that the subject was boring, but then they proceeded to tell me that they didn't do any of the preparatory work, that they didn't talk to their team members, that they didn't think that the community was important. They didn't care. So effectively what they told me is all of the things that you said I should do, I didn't do and I found it boring. And the experience will be the same for you. That if you don't do the things that this subject involves, then it will be boring, okay? Because I'm not going to pour content over the top of you. But if you engage, you should find this subject really important and meaningful, and we're going to work together to make sure that happens. So In order to catch up, I've got a series of activities and videos. Some of the videos will cross over the assessment task, and the reason for that is we talked through a little bit through the assessment tasks in class, and so I want to make sure that you get that as well. Really, that was to spark a conversation. So I'm going to make time available so that you and I can catch up, either as small groups and myself, to answer your questions. The best way to communicate with me is definitely via email. I'm generally pretty quick on email. If I'm not, in a meeting or something, I'll get back to you within a couple of minutes. That's not to say you should get cranky with me if I don't. I do have lots on, but that's going to be the best way, because that's the way that I can keep a track of. If you are on the Bendigo campus, you will find me in Hlt1rce. My door is always open, so feel free to pop in and say hello. I quite like people. I know that that's not always the case for academics, but I quite like people, so I'm more than happy for you to pop in and say, hey, I've got a couple of questions about RCE. Do you mind answering? So feel free to do that. But yes, please, please, please get in contact with me. I don't know if you're struggling unless you tell me. I've got 300 students this year. I'm treating you guys as a little bit special because it's messy. So we're going to work through this together, and it'll be a little bit more bespoke than the other versions, just to counterbalance that. But I am here to support you through that process, but I can't support you unless I know you. Okay, I can't support you unless you come to me. All right, so that is enough for that video. Go through the activities, make sure you do them. Each and every one of these activities links directly to an assessment task. So I'm actually getting you to do work on the assessment task in class. That is the pattern that will go through all semester. The work that we do directly works to the assessment task. There's no redundancy in any of this. So if you don't do it in class, it means you have to do it some other time. Get into it, get in touch with any questions you've got. I look forward to working with you. Catch up.